You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks, what's happening? Happy Wednesday, everybody out there, and welcome to another episode of the Dangerous Liberty Podcast, where we know that safety at the expense of liberty is slavery. I want to say hi to everybody over here in the comments. We got MPCV, Patriot 8x2, Whiskey Helps 13, Harold Shepard, Con, Jeff Johnson, more Con, more Jeff Johnson, Michael Henn, God Offspring, more Con, Harold Shepard. Who else we got over here? Jason TG Sponsler and Ted Boyette. Good to see you, Ted. Otter 114, JJ, and Lori Matthews.
I guess I really thought I'd be super pissed at you about being at the track while I was at work.
Oh, yeah? Well, yeah.
You'll get the black eye later. We can't have it on the podcast for you guys to document it on the podcast. Do it tonight. He'll have until next week to recover.
100%. 100%. I hope everybody out there is having a good week this week. We got a lot to talk about. I think, obviously, we're going to be talking about the new standards that Pete Hegseth just put out for not only physical fitness, but standards in general that are going to be equal between men and women. I have a lot to say on that, but I think there is a much broader application or discussion to be had on that specifically, and I definitely wanted Summer to be here to make sure that we get her input. And Jason's back there.
I'm back here today, guys. I wonder if those standards include signal standards.
Signals, some OPSEC standards. Hopefully, they're going to get the OPSEC standard there because there's there was a swing and a miss on a couple of those things. But yeah, I do think this has some broader implications. I do want to talk a little bit too. We got a lot of interesting things coming up and some new developments. I've talked a little bit about, and we're still moving forward on that, offering a full custom rifles with barreled actions, different chassis, all those things. And by the way, folks, we do have the KRG Whiskey 3 Pro chassis in. Those things are phenomenal. So if you haven't seen those, do we have those on the website yet? Mm-hmm. They're on the website. You might want to go check those out. And they have some amazing features, especially how light they are.
Ooh, lots of rifle-sized boxes arrived from Canada today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So Cadex.
Our 51st state.
Cadex.
I didn't have time to open any of them, and the FedEx guy looked a little PO'd about all the heavy boxes he had to bring in.
So anyways, we'll be going through those. A lot of cool stuff with Cadex rifles coming in. We got more coming in. That's just one of two shipments coming in. So anyways, a lot of cool developments on there, expanding our rifle offerings. There's that. The other thing is we've really been hurting from this side of the house, both on the video production as well as the training side, having a long range available nearby. Some point tomorrow, for those of you guys that are local, like Otter and Mike Henn, basically we got a place that we can do some training, do some things, do some video production right here. And I'll talk to you guys, reach out. It is a little rough. Right now we can get on that range and we can shoot out to about 800 yards. It needs some development. I'll be ordering some targets for it. But the point is we're going to have access to, some distance locally. And that's something that we just don't have here right now. And that changes a lot of things. So anyways, I'll let you guys know what's going on with that. And then we'll probably start offering some courses. Might be a little bit different flavor of courses than obviously what we do with the XP, but it'll still be good all the same.
I like that comment. You should highlight it.
What?
The one you were just hovering over.
There you go, babe. Summer is always right. The problem is the source of the information. God Offspring is often and mostly wrong. So I'm just gonna put that out there.
I'll take it.
So the first thing I want to talk about tonight, or just really go through, it took me a while. There's lots of articles on this memo that Pete Hegseth put out. but it took me forever to actually find the memo. So we're going to share this tab instead, make sure that's up. So this is the actual memo. We're going to read through this real quickly, but memorandum for secretaries of the military departments, combat arms standards. United States military strength is rooted in its unwavering commitment to high standards that foster discipline, unity, and purpose. It is these principles that have made our fighting forces the most formidable in the world. As the nature of warfare evolves and the demands of our service members grows more complex, it is imperative that we assess and refine physical fitness standards that enable our readiness and lethality. I am directing the secretaries of the military departments to develop comprehensive plans to distinguish combat arms occupations from non-combat arms occupations. This effort will ensure that our standards are clear, mission-focused, and reflective of the unique physical demands placed on our service members in various roles. Combat arms versus non-combat arms occupations. The military department's plans must clearly define combat arms occupations and non-combat arm occupations. That is something that's been needed to be done for a long time. There's a lot of guys,
absolutely,
and gals at this point that sit there and like, hey, I'm combat arms. The F you are. All right, you are not. You are not combat arms. Not every person is a combat arms. Anyways, I digress. Additionally, for certain combat arms roles, it is essential to identify which positions require heightened entry level and sustained physical fitness. These roles, which are critical to our military's mission success, demand exceptional physical capabilities, and the standards for them must reflect that rigor. Therefore, plans must address ground combat occupations. Standard for ground combat occupations should emphasize the ability to carry heavy loads, endure prolonged physical exertion, and perform effectively in austere, hostile environments. Service members in these roles must exhibit speed, strength, agility, and endurance to navigate the demands of combat situations. Special Operations Forces occupations. The standards for soft occupation must be equally rigorous. They must actually be more exceptional, in my opinion.
I was like, what?
Incorporating advanced swimming, climbing, parachuting, and the ability to operate in extreme environments. Sustained peak physical performance is essential to execute missions of the highest stakes across diverse and challenging terrains. Specialized occupations. For specialized occupations like Navy divers, explosive ordnance disposal technicians, the focus should be on proficiency in those unique and demanding tasks, such as aquatic rescue, repair, and demolition. Sustained endurance is necessary to tackle long hours and physically and mentally taxing conditions. Sex-neutral standards. All entry-level and sustained physical fitness requirements within combat arms positions must be sex-neutral, based solely on the operational demands of the occupation and the readiness needed to confront any adversary. I'm not a reader,
out, buddy.
And establishing those standards, the secretaries of the military departments may not establish standards that would result in any existing service member being held to a lower standard. To ensure the effectiveness of these plans, I'm directing the secretaries of the military departments to submit their proposals to the Undersecretary of Defense and Personnel Readiness within 60 days of this memorandum. The secretaries of the military department will provide an interim update on the development of their plan in the USD PNR within 30 days. The USD PNR has the authority to provide additional direction based on interim update. Full implementation of these plans must occur within 6 months of submission. This initiative aligns with my broader directive to maintain uncompromising and clear standards that ensure the continued dominance of our military. This review is a necessary step in strengthening readiness of our forces and preparing for the future. It will demonstrate how our department continually adapts to meet evolving challenges and ensure operational excellence. I trust in your commitment to upholding the principles that defines us as the world's most lethal and effective fighting force. Sincerely, with love, Pete Hegseth. So that's what we have. And that is the cut and dry. There's a lot of spin being put on this, as I knew there would. I actually expected more, to be honest with you. But I think
more spin or more memorandum?
More spin, more political pushback, all those things. But the fact of the matter is I think this is long overdue. And I think that you know, the reality is that we have definitely watered down, and I know I'm going to get into some trouble tonight with maybe some of the viewers, but also in general, because some of these things aren't very politically correct. But the fact is that you cannot put women in special operations and enhance special operations. You cannot put women in combat roles and enhance those the combat and fighting capabilities, period. There's a lot of reasons, and it's not just physical, but it can start there. And we've always had a dual standard for physical fitness for men and women. I think that's wrong. And we've also had multiple standards. I think there's like 4 or 5 standards within age brackets. But the fact is, in special operations, regardless of how old you were when you were going through, and I can only speak from, well, no, that's not true. Whether you're going to like Ranger Battalion or you're going to become a Green Beret and you're going to selection and ultimately a Q course, you were always graded under the 18 to 24-year-old standard, which is the highest physical fitness standard.
Yep.
No matter
what age you were, whatever else. Matter. And by the way, you know, if you weren't maxing your PT test and you were under the age of 40, you were a turd. You were basically a turd, right?
Yeah.
I'll say it for you.
and the differences, you know, the differences between the female standard and the men's standard is broad, to say the least. You guys can pull some of those up and look at those, but you know, run times, push-ups, you know, going back to the old APFT, the Army Physical Fitness Standard, you know, you had a run, you had push-ups, and you had sit-ups. Those were the 3 things that you did. You had a 2-mile run, you had 2 minutes to do as many push-ups as you could, and 2 minutes to do as many sit-ups as you could. And you know, the difference between men and women's 18 to 24 was pretty broad. Never mind the fact that I know that there were different ruck times, standards, and things like that once they started letting women go to selection and other events. But besides that, you know, when you went to selection, it said your minimum ruck was going to be, your minimum ruck was going to be 45 pounds. But Jason, like, was our rucks ever 45 pounds? I know in the Q course, I had like 180 something pound. During Robin Sage, I had like 180 pounds.
Sage specifically.
Yeah.
Mine was, I think it was 135.
Yeah.
140, something like that. It was another person.
I was carrying the 240 and all the ammo and Sage because I was one of the bigger guys. I was probably the biggest guy, and I knew I could ruck and I could handle it. But the funny thing was, I think the max parachute weight was 450.
Yeah.
And we were jumping in, and I remember going to my tech, and I'm like, hey man, I'm like 100 pounds over weight. You know, right. He was like, nah, you'll be fine.
We had a guy lose his leg in Sage.
Yeah, 100%. Were you on that? Yeah, you were.
That was my Sage.
Yeah, the same. We're in the same Robin Sage together.
Yep.
I'll think of his name in just a second. Moriarty. Moriarty. His name was Moriarty. He ended up. That was the worst jump I've ever been on, but that's for another story.
Those are some crazy jumps that day, for sure.
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, women, just talking about physical fitness standards, look, women cannot 99.99, you know, even if we look at the males across the board in the military, the vast majority will not pass, even in combat arms. We see it all the time for one reason or another. I mean, I think between selection, when you go to selection, if you count selection all the way through the core Q course, and from the time that somebody attempts to start the process to the time they actually get their Green Beret, it's like a 90% washout rate, somewhere in there. It was extremely high. I don't remember the numbers, but it was close to 90%. And
100 men.
Yeah,
will test today.
No singing.
But I do have to disagree with you a little bit on the physical part.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So while yes,
we can start off this podcast with you being wrong. Go ahead.
While yes, if we're comparing our PT studs, right, to women, right, you know, it's going to be hard it's going to be hard for most of them to come up to that level. However, right, you and I both know in the infantry or even in an SF, right, we have guys that are sometimes dragging behind, can't keep up, stuff like that, right, that women can keep up with those guys. You know what I mean? So like, while I
Jason,
say,
so you're saying the weak guys, the women can keep. No, I'm just joking.
well, what I'm saying
I
is,
know,
yeah,
I'm
what I'm
just
saying,
joking.
if you have a 150-pound guy that is pulling this through barely, right, you have some women that can definitely outperform them. Now, I'll say the margins are small. You still have to have a pretty in shape female.
See, I've never
but
seen
physically, I think some can hang.
Well,
Right?
my point is
You're saying some of the best females can hang with some of the lower males.
I would think so. Yeah.
Physically.
Absolutely.
I'll sum it up for you.
And what I would say is that a very small percentage, you know, there's like, it's like 1% of the US ends up going in the military, something along those lines. Even a smaller percentage of that ends up in combat arms. And then like less than 1% of the US Army ends up in special operations. It's way less than that. So you're going through this filtering process where you're getting, you know, smaller and smaller numbers, more and more capable, typically more and more capable people. And yeah, there may be some smaller dudes that are sucking. But again, that's just on the physical fitness standards. I still think it is such a hugely small percentage of women that would be able to go through the Q course with the standards, all standards being equal, go through selection.
And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
if you keep the standards, the men's standards, if a female could keep up with the men's standards, right? Because you're going to have some men that
she's
can't
a
keep
freaking
up,
beast.
right? Yeah, she might be a beast, right? Then I'm all for that.
I am too. I am too, to some extent. And
I think logistically now there's some other issues there, right?
Well, logistically, psychologically,
yeah, for sure, absolutely.
A lot of other complications, and this is
society
wide too. And again, we'll get into some more of those broader implications of that as well. But so. Number one, I've never seen a single female, and of course, being in combat arms during the time that I wasn't around a lot of them. But when I was at the 101st, you know, we still had these ruck events and things like that, and like the top women weren't finishing that ruck in 2 hours. You know, like I've
Were
done.
They carrying the same amount of weight?
Well, and that's who knows. Who knows? They were supposed to. They're supposed to be 45 pounds at a minimum. Like, you know, so I've never seen, there's very few women that are going to run, you know, a sub 13-minute 2 mile. There's some that can.
Not this one.
But, you know, here's the other thing too, is like, can that chick, if you or I go down, is she pulling us out of a house?
Well,
can one of these chicks,
arguably though, like some of the guys on my team, like, could I pull them? You know, we have guys that are 6'4", right?
You are 3'8".
Yeah.
So that's there is.
But like, you know, even some guys, you know, we had to have trucks rigged up to pull them out of somewhere. You know what I mean? So you can't compare a female. Oh, they're going to be able to pull me out. Well, some guys can't pull us out because in kit we weigh so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's a huge issue with all that stuff. So like that whole aspect of, oh, well, can she pull me out? Theoretically, if they're passing and keeping up with all the man standards, then yes, she can. But
I don't know. No. Because you're talking about your own, being able to propel your own body weight and then some sort of load with that.
I mean, for the med courses we have Rescue Randy, and he's 185 pounds, and I can't move that thing by myself.
Yeah, and just because they could, let's say,
and I'm strong.
Just because a woman that can run 2 miles in 13 minutes doesn't mean that she can pull the same amount of weight that I can, or you can, or the average guy that also will run that or be able to ruck with 45 plus pounds, whatever it is.
I mean, if you look at some of these pro CrossFit females, I mean,
when you compare times, Jason, but when you compare times,
it's a small percentage again.
And here's the other thing too, is those women are juiced
women.
Those women are juiced all to hell and back too. Let's be real with CrossFit.
Hey, you know.
But when you look at the disparity between the men and women's times, it's crazy. It's like, oh my God, she's a beast, and she is for a woman. But when you
Mhm.
compare that to what the men are doing in those same events, it is a completely different thing. And that's what I'm saying. And this is my whole problem is I'm absolutely okay with women going through special operations. Here's what I'd like to see. I would like to see, because this is the thing that
He's
we've
like,
never,
oh, wait a second.
this is the thing that
Just
we've
say
never
you're
seen.
not okay with women being in special operations.
Well, I'm not. But what I want to talk specifically about
Right.
the physical. I want to see some of these women not get preferential treatment and actually do the exact same standards. And I want to see where the cards and the chips fall at that point.
That's what I want to see. That's what
because
I
that's never been done.
Yeah,
it's never been done.
Yeah,
and I think at some point what would happen is just logistically, it's like if you made it the same standard like what we're talking about with Pete Hegseth is doing, and you still allow them to go through selection and things like that, at some point there's going to be such a high failure rate that they're going to be like, look, this doesn't make sense. We're spending all this money on room, board, training, all this thing, travel, and we're sending these, and when 99.9999% and like we've never had one pass, then it just doesn't make sense to do it.
Yeah.
Now, when you get into the dynamics, and again, just speaking from a Green Beret, you get a 12-person team and you have a team house and you're in the middle of Iraq, Afghanistan, or wherever we're going to be going pretty soon, Ukraine or whatever else. And now you get all the complicated dynamics of having a female involved in that.
In a team house?
House.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. Logistically, I don't think it really works out very well.
And here's the thing, too.
I think there's some other issues there for sure.
And here's the thing, too. Like, if we had a chick on our team, like all the guys will absolutely show that chick preferential treatment.
1,000%.
It's almost subconscious.
Yeah, I was
right?
about to say, maybe not even consciously.
It's not even like, oh,
she would be a distraction in a multitude of ways.
It'll either be one way or the other, right? They'll either absolutely despise you.
Yeah, so some of the dudes will.
Right.
Yeah.
They'll absolutely
because of that, because they know the truth on it.
Yeah, they'll absolutely despise you, or they'll do everything they can.
They're going to be resentful that they're there, that they got there under lower standards. They're going to be resentful that they're there, that they have lower capabilities, because they will. They'll be resentful. I mean, like, do all it's not just what you do in selection, but now you're on missions and you're doing all these things that are extremely physically demanding. You're doing it under stress, getting shot at, potentially wounded, up for days without any sort of sleep. That's when things really start to fall apart. And the thing is man, women have a role in the military. There's no doubt about it. And I'm so sick of this crazy, it's like, I'm so sick of these double standards, period. Right. And where we're trying to get this inclusion for the sake of inclusion, as opposed to, and Pete Hegseth has said all this stuff better than I ever could, but we need to focus on having the absolute best. You know what? Chances are we could probably increase the standards of special operations to begin with. We can start there.
I mean, you could,
and then apply those across the board right off the bat. So better physical fitness standards, better everything standards, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, make sure that if women are going to apply to those positions, that they are at least the same. They have the same expectations from physical standards. But there are so many other things more that even if you had a majority of women that could pass those standards, there's so many other things I think would diminish overall combat effectiveness that have nothing to do with just the physical limitations.
There, I 100% agree with you. The dynamics would change when you just throw one female into a team.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Like it would,
or two females, three females,
or
four
half
females.
the team females,
or half, like half, or a freaking team leader or a team sergeant that's a female. It's look. There's a reason why for thousands of years, we've not had women in combat roles. It's because it doesn't work, and it's just a fact.
Well, and I think and this kind of goes across a lot of areas of life, but there's a couple of females that want to push the envelope and they want to be everything that a man is.
Yeah,
and it sets up a lot of other females for failure, essentially, because now you're trying to meet these standards that you just physically aren't capable of meeting because you're a female. You don't have the right hormones. You don't have the right all these other things. So you constantly feel like a failure. Well, then how does that feel when the standard has to be lowered? I mean, whether you want to admit it or not, it's going to feel shitty to that woman. Well, yeah, I may have passed, but only because they lowered the standards because I passed.
Well, and the thing is, here's what the military has been doing for a multitude of years, really since like a couple years after Jason and I got out. They started changing the Q course. They started changing all these things. So you'd have the perception of equal standards, so that you have the perception of not having lower standards.
They lowered the standards for the men.
They lowered standards for everybody.
And then said, oh, everybody has to meet this.
And then 100%.
Yeah.
Which is not the right answer. And the other thing, during the Obama, this was huge during the Obama. This is where all of this started in 2008. They started degrading special operations. They started giving our missions that we had, foreign internal defense and many other things. They were outsourcing those to conventional forces.
You guys had too much. You were too special.
And
they wanted to water you down.
They were trying to mass produce.
That is the problem. And then they wanted to. Part of that strategy, or part of that was about the strategy of integrating females into special operations and many other things. Yeah. But it's just bad. And the other problem that we have is that it doesn't celebrate the uniqueness of the capabilities of females to begin with. There's definitely a lot of things that women can do better than men, like wash dishes, have babies.
I could definitely have a baby better than you. You would be like a little freaking baby in the floor.
First of all, I would be a lesbian. Let's just be real. If I was a woman,
if he had to go through labor,
get that thing away from me.
If he had to go through labor, oh my God. Yeah. I was telling someone asked me about labor last night, and she's a female that hasn't had children yet. I was telling her about labor with Jackson. She's like, wow, Summer, you're really making me want to have a baby. I was like, yeah, it hurts. It's not good. Not good.
I mean, Jeff is right. God especially created women for certain tasks.
Yeah.
I mean, they were physically but one of the things I am absolutely sick of, and I think this is part of, just the thing that we're talking about here, women in the military, is part of a grander scheme of this blurring of the lines between men and women, which also has a huge negative effect on society overall. I absolutely think that women should be
just breaking down the family roles even more, breaking down the family.
It is. I mean, the last thing that you want is men and women in a family deployed when you have kids. I mean, that is a terrible thing for people to experience, for kids to experience. But on top of that, I mean, I think that stay-at-home moms should be the absolute most celebrated things in our society. I think that is one of the greatest roles. But the problem is when you have divorce and non-marital status being not only celebrated to a lot of extent,
almost like it's empowering for the woman.
Well, I mean, and then it's also financially beneficial the way that the welfare system and things like that are set up, right? And that's one of the biggest problems with the breakdown of not only the U.S. society at large, but where I think people have been most affected by this is in African Americans. I mean, that's the number one determination of whether or not you're going to be successful, if you're going to be poor, is whether or not you have a two-parent family. That is the number one determination of poverty and everything else. And yeah, there's always going to be those folks for a multitude of reasons of why that, parents are going to get divorced, right? But it shouldn't be something that is celebrated. And I think that has been a big push for a really, really long time to get women out of the household. And now we're at a point to where just economically, like, you almost have to have two parents working. And that's a real shame. And that's not going to continue.
That's for sure.
That's not going to contribute to our society in any meaningful, positive way. We have kids that don't have two parents almost. I mean, it's more often than not that they don't have a household that hasn't been split up, hasn't had divorce, and then they go through another thing that I was watching. Oh gosh, what is his name? I'll think of him in just a second.
See, I don't want a wife that wants to stay at home though. I want a wife that wants a career, right? That
I'm
wants
not
to go
knocking
out.
motivation. I
Well,
mean,
that's
look at
because you're
me.
selfish.
I'm one of the most motivated,
I mean, that's for sure.
hardworking
That's for
people
sure.
that has existed, but there are roles
Well,
within
technically, you do have a career. You do
now,
work,
but I was
right?
a stay-at-home mom for many years.
Sure.
But I was also doing things from home, like
Mhm.
Yeah.
frickin' I had a whole eBay business that I was making all kinds of side.
Yep.
I was making
So
no side money.
why is
no,
that-
no side money, IRS. No side
Let
money.
me ask you this, Jay. Why would you prefer a wife that wants a career?
I don't
I'm
know.
just
I
curious.
just prefer.
You want her to have kind of her own
Yeah.
thing going on, or is that an indicator to
Yeah, I
you
like
of
having
motivation?
Well,
or
no, I just kind of like each having our own kind of things going on, you know. And I guess I don't know. I don't want to feel like they're just sitting at home and I'm just supporting them. I'd rather have them have something to do.
I can tell you what, a woman that has children at home, or even a household to run, man, I used to keep myself so busy even before we had kids.
Before we had a business.
Before we had a business, before we had kids, like Gary would come home and the whole house was remodeled. But if anyone thinks that a woman with a child or children is sitting at home,
Well, there's some that
I
do.
know what you mean, Jason. I know
Yeah.
you don't mean that Bree's just sitting on the couch all day. But,
No, yeah,
but
obviously.
there's a lot of things that go on in the household that, I mean, I'm sorry, but I was super valuable to you being at home, running our
100%.
entire household, taking care
And I
of.
loved the
Yeah.
fact that our kids had mom at home. They weren't stuck in daycare. And look, everybody has to determine what's right for them.
Right.
You know, and it has
Not
to do.
knocking the people that have their kids in
This is not
daycare or
what I'm saying is that option is almost off the table, given our society expectations and also given just the economic expectations or the economic demands that we have on the current society. Like it's almost impossible to be able to raise a family and live a good, comfortable life with a single parent.
I don't know.
working.
When you look at the cost of daycare, if you have to put your child in
It
daycare,
is,
that's
yeah.
freaking astronomical.
It's not cheap. Tell me, ask me how I know.
Jeff said,
But-
I want my wife at home. My girlfriends can work.
There you go.
You got to keep the girlfriends occupied sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just don't think, and part of this goes back to what we've normalized as well. We've normalized two parents working, and Jay, I don't know, again, you may have your own thoughts on this, but the problem is what we have done is we've demonized a lot of women that are stay-at-home moms. That's part of it. Like even kind
I
of
I
can
feel
agree
like
with
that's
that.
kind of coming back around. Though, a
even
little
kind of
bit.
what you're talking about, Jay, is almost like a stereotype. Is kind of like you saying like I don't want my wife to be that stereotypical dependopotamus.
Well, that's
I think you were more dependopotamus on me than I was. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
Okay.
100%. We're codependent.
I was
and that's how it should
financially
be.
dependent on you, and you were dependent on me in every other aspect. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I just
You just enjoy a
kinda like
different-
a career-driven woman generally.
And that's
you know?
fine, and that's fine. Like
Yeah.
And again, it's almost become an expectation for women to work, and it's almost a negative if you see a woman that is at home. Now, again, there are definitely women out there that will abuse that, and we've seen that amongst our friends. Like you see in the military all the time. That's where the term dependopotamus comes from.
Yeah.
You literally see these overweight, can contribute nothing type women.
They sit on their butt all day. They are sitting at home.
They will
Oh,
literally
TRICARE.
get divorced from one military guy and then go and remarry a week later to another military guy. And there are those.
Hopefully a higher rank.
And of course,
Trade up.
well, usually, she's got some miles on her, so she's got to settle
Gotta
with
go
it.
down.
She's got to go down a couple of ranks.
She's doing it all wrong.
That I think is the larger discussion at hand. I think the most important discussion, the importance of women at home, and I just would like to see a resurgence of that, where we really start putting more focus on our family and on our kids being raised by two parents. There's a whole thing that we can go down
And in no way are we trying to shame or make feel
No.
bad a woman that there are some women that they love to go outside of the house and work. That's what they've chosen to do. Or a woman that is trying to raise her kids by herself due to whatever circumstances she came upon. When we're saying how important a 2-parent household is, it is important. But, if the circumstances have put you where you are and they were essentially out of your control, we're not bashing you either.
Yeah, and I think that he says it right. When women enter the workforce, it really messed up the nuclear family and the wages and expectations of the workforce. I think that is a problem. And even, again, there's lots of women that want this career and all these other things because they've grown up in a society where that is the standard and that's what they've been told they should want, as opposed to putting more like
if you're going to be even have a chance at being wealthy, that you both have to have a good career.
And even the the kind of importance of wealth or whatever else, like as opposed to actually putting your family first, making sure that your kids are taken care of and are taught the way they should be taught and are disciplined and are nourished. And
let's face it though, Gary, there's a lot of stay-at-home moms in households, that even 2-parent households, that produce kids that have no discipline. They do nothing all day. It's exactly what is wrong with society.
Yeah, they breed double stupidity.
Well, and again, I think this goes back to continued lower societal standards for some of those reasons.
Sure.
Like, the fact is that when you have a mom and a father that both work they're working outside the home, and then they come home, they don't want to come home and yell at their kids and gripe at their kids and be mean to their kids. I think the lack of discipline is also an offshoot or a result of exactly what we're talking about. And that is saying, hey, you know what? Men and women are equal. They should be doing the exact same things. They're capable of the exact same things. Their value should be quantified by the exact same things. And what we're talking about when we say quantified by your value is how much money you've earned.
Well, or even like what you contribute. Like a woman is just as valuable as a man is just as valuable as a woman, but in contributing different things. And ideally,
and you have to quantify those completely different. And that's the problem, is that we said, hey, you know what? This is what quantifies self-worth, or this is what quantifies success. And that's not what it should be. Like how your relationships with your kids, what type of adults you're producing at the end of everything. That's what's more important than how much money you made or anything else. And if you made a lot of money, great. But at the end of the day, that money's gone, and what you're left with is a bunch of turd-ass kids that don't know what they're doing, and it can't contribute. And then they end up on the couch in the basement. Even when we look at things like these OnlyFans, all these other people, again, like what is emphasized there is how much money you make or how much money you need, as opposed to your self-worth. What is more important? And
that's a society thing. Values assigned by wealth.
Family dynamic is also the same thing. Like if you have a spouse that has her own career, makes good money, and and each of them have their own thing. I think it's nice not to know that, like, hey, I'm not dependent upon her. She's not dependent upon me to survive, right? I think you have a whole different dynamic there. Whereas, like, sometimes, men that make the money, right, and their wife doesn't work, right, they can use that against them as like a controlling aspect. Like, oh, well, you can't leave me because you don't have anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of women that probably feel stuck.
Yeah, right. It feels stuck, right? When you have a spouse that has their own career, like you're there, you generally like to spend time with each other, be with each other, because in reality, you don't have to be with each other.
But that can go the opposite way, Jason, where they're both having those separate careers and living separate lives, and then they end up divorced because they both found someone else that they spend more time with, because they never get any time together.
I think what you just talked about has merit, but I also think it's a societal trap. I think the entire point of marriage is codependency. Like you should be codependent on one another, and that's part of, and that's why divorce rates are so high. It's really so easy to get out of a marriage anymore. And, again, definitely some people out there, look, I've been divorced. I'm not freaking throwing rocks in a glass house, but I do think, generally speaking, divorce is more negative than positive. And I think we have gotten into a point to where we're a throwaway society, where we throw away relationships when they're tough. Where I do think you can call it being trapped or whatever else. But I think our parents and our ancestors that stuck through the hard times, there's definitely some on the edges, right? There's definitely numbers on the edges where it's like, yeah, they stuck through that marriage. They were miserable until the day they died. But there's also a lot of folks, and we all go through, different seasons of our relationships and things like that, where it's like, dude, this woman is crazy. I got to get away from her. And guess what? A couple weeks later, things die down, and you know what? We can see light at the end of the tunnel. And the next thing you know, 20 years into it, we're happy, because there's many times, Summer and I are coming on our 20-year anniversary next year. There's been many times where we were like, we both wanted a divorce multiple times. I mean, I'm sure me more than her. I'm sure it's very rare that she wanted a divorce from all of this.
All of that. All of that.
But, now looking back, it's like, hey, man, you know what? We got a lot to be proud of. And we built something together, both on a relationship. Forget about the business. I don't even want to include that. But, we've built something together. We have a great family. We have a great life. Yeah, things get hard. She's very hard to put up with sometimes. But, I know that sticking it out, even when she's difficult to deal with.
The alternative is that you feel lost without me.
And that is true. That is true. And I think, again, the roles of women and men being continually
I think you asked me to marry you like 2 weeks after you met me.
I think you're exaggerating a bit, but
okay. I know it was quick.
It was like 3.
I know it was quick.
He said, "I'm going to marry you." Yeah. He may have not asked, but he said, "I'm going to marry you."
Yeah, she didn't have a choice.
Yeah. Now, I think, speaking of the nuclear family, I think the nuclear family where women got more career driven is when divorces started being more prevalent.
Maybe socially acceptable, and then they felt like they had to.
Well, when divorces got more prevalent, right, and so socially acceptable, right, where people the women started getting stuck. Well, they didn't have a support system because they didn't have careers back then, right? And then those women bred into their daughters, hey, never be dependent upon a man, right? So get your own careers, and that's where that probably started stemming from was back then, right? And
I almost think it's a chicken and the egg thing. I'm not sure which came first.
I think I'm right.
Whether it was, considering you said it, there's probably a chance that you're wrong. I don't know if divorce became more prevalent because it was socially acceptable, or divorce became more prevalent because more and more women were working outside of the home.
I think it became more socially acceptable.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, there's no doubt that it did. Forget about socially acceptable. Was it more prevalent because we had more and more women working outside of the home?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think the opposite is true. I think they ended up having to go out and work more because they had to support themselves.
If you look at how things went down, there's definitely a correlation between those two things.
Women,
going back from the 40s.
But women used to work in factories many decades before that.
Yeah. Well, World War II, right? They had to replace
even before that.
Well, I'm talking about in the 40s. In the 40s, during World War II is really where we started seeing, after that, it was really where we started seeing a gradual increase of women in the workforce.
Do you think that maybe the divorce got more acceptable after World War II because you had a lot of men coming back from the war that were very, very hard to live with?
Sure. Yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah.
And it became more like, hey, we can't expect a woman to live like this. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
I'm sure all those things played
a
huge part contributing. But there was this movement, there was a huge political movement too. It was like, hey, and I think this was a political divide and something that, a lot of people latched onto to push getting elected. Like, hey, we're going to create more support for single women. And I think, when you incentivize, I think they took an issue that was real, they magnified it and exploited it, is what I'm trying to say. Because there definitely should be support for women, but when you're incentivizing women having kids and being a single mother, which is exactly what we've done since at least the 60s, like that is where you're going to see a lot more single mothers. And that is where we start to see a major problem, especially within the African American community, for sure.
Maybe it was easier for the women to have one less kid to take care of.
Gary, can you move this
the
mouse
husband
cursor on the screen? Like, it is killing me right now.
Oh, right in your face.
I was dying.
Yeah. There's been some good comments.
Let's go through some of these comments here.
Jeff said he got married after 3 months of knowing his wife. Worked out well for him.
He found a woman that could
Put up with him, and he's like, I better put a ring on it.
tolerate
I
him.
better put a ring on it.
Jeff's wife, blink twice if you need help.
Yeah.
He said my wife knew what goodness she had. Oh man.
Yeah, John, there was definitely some things going on before that, but the women's live movement, it was kind of started,
I think
I would
started
agree with that
in the
60s,
60s.
I was
in
going
the
to say
late
that like
50s,
it's
early
all kind of
60s.
wrapped up in women's equality, women's liberation.
Yeah,
All kind of wrapped up in that whole thing.
100%.
She's not allowed to blink.
Jeff tells me I should stop talking all the time. The women shouldn't be talking.
Yeah, but anyways, and I know some of you guys kind of already expressed some things on it to begin with, but you guys tell me what you think when it comes to making sure that we have equal standards, because I do think that anything less is just soft
I think
bigotry.
the standards should just be based off what the job is.
100%.
Yeah, that's what I say. And you know, again, going back to the physical thing, like if you take the best WNBA player, right, and put it against the best NBA player,
There's no
like,
freaking comparison.
there's no comparison. But if you take the best WNBA player and put it against the worst NBA player, right, you might have someone that's beating the other.
And that's the
no,
other
you won't.
thing.
No, you won't.
Just
I don't think. I think you're
so
wrong.
there's a famous interview of Serena Williams or a famous interview talking about a guy talking about how women are equal, and this goes back to the trans movement. But there was this thing where they were talking about, hey, Serena Williams, and I need to look this up, and I think, but basically Serena Williams would beat any male tennis player out there. And come to find out, that's not true, because it was like a 14-year-old tennis player that was ranked like 3,000th beat her, a male, you know, like it really, the disparity is greater than what we've been lied to.
I mean, man, it's just like you go to the youth wrestling matches where we go with Noah, and I'm telling you, past like that, like 9-10-year-old age mark, when you still have mixed, you know, you have
the females,
males and females wrestling all the way up to like 14 together, and even past probably, but it's painful to watch after like that 10-year-old mark. Like a girl can be really freaking good and she's struggling against every male on the mat. And it sucks because you can see she has skill. You can see she's super strong, and she just can't get it.
Yeah.
I think after like 10-ish, 11-ish, like it should just be separate. But at the same time, the girls enter, they know what they're doing. You know, they do have girls only tournaments and girls only wrestling. If they choose to enter the mixed, then they're treated the same. And I, you know, even Noah's had to wrestle some girls over the years. And I'm like, look, she chose this. You treat her like any other opponent and crush her.
Yeah. Well, again, you get some of those women wrestlers that are like 120 pounds versus a 120-pound guy. Like, it's, a lot of it is
huge difference.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of times the women do good.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
And when you see,
well, you have a weight class there, which makes a big difference.
There's also a reason why we're seeing all these boys that pretend to be girls going into women's sports, and they're just destroying them.
That's just ridiculous.
They're destroying. When you take, you know, men that are ranked like 500th, and they're beating all the women by a large margin, whether we're talking about swimming, running, or whatever else it is. So that's part of this problem, is that like we've had these disparities, these physical disparities and physical capabilities skewed and hidden. And people, like, the left doesn't want you to know how drastic the actual difference is between men and women when it comes to physical capabilities.
100%. Men should not be into women's sports. Like you should not be taking away stuff from female athletes in their gender. 100%. Caitlyn Jenner was a huge proponent of that. Of
it not being mixed.
Not being mixed.
Yeah.
because she knows.
Yeah.
She knows what a difference testosterone makes.
Well, she said, you know, if you were to allow me in running, he's let alone, he's like, what about golf even? I can crush that golf ball from a lady's tee all day.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, it doesn't matter. You know, oh yeah, Riley Gaines, like, yeah, poor Riley Gaines, you know, that was ridiculous.
Well, there was a great interview that she had, or a discussion point that she had, even in front of Congress, where she kind of went through and named all these females versus male, you know, and the difference between those.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could find this, and of course, I'm Googling this, so it's going to be freaking hard to find. How
dare you?
Let me see. I think this is it.
Oh, well, that's a terrible way to start that video.
Poor Riley.
I'm gonna share this video with you guys once it starts playing. But I mean, the fact is, there's a huge difference between the capabilities of men and women, and that's just on the physical capabilities. We're not even talking about the psychological negative impact of combat, the ability to deal with those things.
1,000% agree with you.
And then on
I
top of
think
that,
that's your biggest trial.
And then on top of that, like, and I've talked about this before, like if you had a female on your team, number one, most men are going to feel protective.
Sure, it's going to go one or two ways, like I said.
I think the majority of people.
I think even the men that may resent or hate her would still, if it came down to it, feel obligated to protect her.
I don't know.
And the negative impacts of a female being injured or, you know, something along those lines. I don't know what just happened, but this switched on me. Let me. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but I'm gonna play that. Yeah, this was another case in point of this. And here's
the Olympics.
And here's another point I wanted to make when it comes to this. You know, like right now, let's say I don't know what the actual rules are for like the NBA or the NFL, but right now we do not allow, or I've never seen a woman go try out for the NFL or the NBA. And
the NFL, you're going to get a female kicker sooner or later.
Well, that's fine.
100%.
I don't. That's not really. It's not a combat role, if you will, right? It's like, okay, well, you're gonna get a female truck driver from time to time. That's fine. Not really the same thing. But what we're not doing in the NFL, and we're not doing in any major league sports, is we're not integrating women for the sake of integrating women and for, you know, equity and equality. It's the opposite of equality, and yet we're forcing that upon the military, which has a much higher stakes.
Yeah,
you're talking about their life. We won't do that for professional sports.
Consequences.
I think we can agree that if we threw in like 30%, look, you know what the new rule is: the NFL has to be 30% women, 40% women, or 50% women.
I would love to see the high.
Nobody would. I mean, people wouldn't watch it as much.
Would we have a better NFL? Would we? I mean, we might want to watch it because I would like more viewers. I would like to see, you know,
but I don't know.
I would like to see a 400-pound lineman just crush.
Oh my God!
Crush, you know, 150, 200-pound female.
Women would be dying.
They would.
You would literally, yeah. Someone
and this
would
is
die.
the problem. You're right. In the military, there's going to be women dying.
Yeah.
And they're going to get other people killed. Yeah. It's all for the sake of integration, just because we think it's cool and it's a really good, you know, social exercise. But we would never do that in professional sports because that's, you know, actual performance matters and that because
money's,
you know,
on
money's
the
on the line.
Money's on the line.
Money's on the line.
And that's another thing when you brought up the
WNBA.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everybody complains like, oh, it's so crazy. The women aren't paid even a fraction of what the men are. Well, they don't bring in the money that the men do. Look at the viewership. Look at the ad revenue.
Yeah.
They can't pay them that much.
Right.
Well, and I'll tell you, Jordan Peterson does a takedown on the difference between, you know, the real reason behind the pay disparity much better than anyone I've ever seen. But let's play this real quick because here we have Riley Gaines talking about the biological differences between men and women.
Can they hear that?
People like you, they turned up to the polls to reject absurdity. which is exactly what the Democratic Party has become from top to bottom, at least in terms, maybe not amongst the general public, the everyday, American Democrat, but definitely in terms of elected representation, and definitely in terms of how the media, left-leaning media, is presenting and talking about these topics, such as keeping men out of women's sports, which you're passionate about. I mean, do you think this is something that you feel passionate
Do you
about?
think it's ironic that I'm passionate about that because I was a girl in a guy's sport?
I was going to ask you, it's which has been amazing to see what all you've accomplished in a male-dominated sport.
There are just clear biological differences between the two. I mean, all you have to do is YouTube or Google some stories of people that took transition drugs and how, different they felt taking testosterone, whether it be strength or, libido, or just like all the changes that end up happening. It's like hormones play a huge role. I mean, hormones to a large degree create your personality. And so, and they definitely drive biology. So there's just some clear differences. So when it comes to strength and pure potential there's just no question that guys are able to achieve more than women.
So
Yeah. So,
American energy dominance.
let me get off of this real quick.
It's how we secure our
Couldn't hear it.
future.
Harry told me I didn't need to
Harnessing homegrown energy
Well,
to
you saw
fuel our economy.
thing, Jason. So,
I mean, the
You
fact
could've-
that Danica would even say that hormones can affect personality, good God, she must have taken a beating for saying that. But
Yeah.
I think it's true, and that's part of when you talk about puberty blockers, like you're literally blocking so much of who they become as an adult human, whether they choose to identify as female or male.
I think you're a complete psychopath if you use
puberty,
if you use any sort of hormone blockers on children. That I think
you don't even like really become a fully formed human being until after you go through puberty. So the fact that you're blocking that, your mind is not developed. I mean, you're keeping these people stuck at this undeveloped state for the rest of their life. It's freaking crazy.
Like I said, if you think it's okay for your kid to make a decision that is that big for them to do that stuff, then you should be able to say, hey, here's my finances, you take care of it. Right. Would you give your child the ability to do
here's my
all
car,
your
go
finances?
drive wherever you want to?
Yeah.
And
is that they'll pay your bills, they'll do everything, their money just goes into a bank account.
Yeah.
Are you okay with them making the decisions for your finances? If not, they probably should make a life-altering decision.
I guarantee you those same parents that are advocating puberty blockers and making a child being able to say I'm male or female, identify as whatever they want, are still telling their child, no, you don't need to eat that candy. No, you're not going to have some soda. Here's what you're going to have for dinner. So you don't even allow them to make their own decisions on what they can put in their bodies, what they eat.
Right.
But you're going to tell them, oh yeah, if you feel like a man,
you feel like you're
cool.
a woman.
Yeah. And JJ, I disagree with you on that. I don't know what you're saying exactly, and if I'm disagreeing with you on the wrong points, you let me know. But the other thing too, I don't want a woman in combat. Just from a emotional standpoint, the fact is that there's a difference in emotional tolerance and being able to, at a minimum,
well, women are meant to be nurturers. They're meant to care. So there's some things that they would not be able to see and tolerate emotionally that men can. And you put it in your little box and you move on.
That's the thing. I don't think most women cannot, a large majority, a vast majority, cannot compartmentalize the way that
the same way
men do.
And then we can live everything swirling around in there.
100%.
And it all comes out at once when we're pissed at you.
I agree with you. I think psychologically, women in a combat role, specifically integrated with men, right? Because there might be a way to integrate women in a combat role in a women's unit, let's say, right? But integrated with men, that's going to be hard. I think again, physically, I think some people can hang. But psychologically, I think that would just be a whole dynamic on another level that is not good.
Yeah.
It would 100,000% not good. Not to mention, she would be pregnant probably within the
5
first
minutes.
6 months,
5
right? On the
minutes.
team.
And she'd need a paternity test to know who it was, for most likely. Like, I'm just saying.
Well, Colin, there's definitely some dudes out there that can be emotional. There's no doubt about it as well.
Yeah, I'm not saying you guys don't have emotions or that you guys aren't affected by
I think you've literally
things.
said I don't have emotions.
I'm saying you guys
I think more than once you said
you
I
guys
don't have emotions.
handle it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Again,
And I'm not saying guys aren't nurturers. I'm saying that's not the primary role.
well, the gay ones are.
Never mind. I'll just stop talking. You're always right. I'm
This
always
is a
wrong.
man's conversation. You hush, woman.
I'm sure that was one thing you and Jeff would agree on.
We're
I'll just sit over here and click around on my computer and be
Canceled. See you
quiet.
guys another day.
Yeah. No. There's a huge difference. I think this is such a big benefit, and this is, again, this should go across society wide. Like, we can't be giving anyone, the bigotry of double standards should not ever apply. And that's one of the biggest problems that we've seen when it came to
Affirmative action.
affirmative action. Affirmative action. I mean,
See,
that's the biggest problem.
Dependa.
I mean, when you're looking at, it's like, okay, all right, you're black or whatever race you happen to be, and because on average you guys score less, we're going to allow you
That's
to
what
get
they're
a lower
essentially saying.
score.
Like, you can't manage to meet the standard.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is,
Right.
it
Because
is
your
it
skin
is-
color.
It is the most racist thing there ever was.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? We need a more diverse workforce.
You're black, so we don't believe in you as much.
So we're not going to require you to have the same capabilities, job experience, schooling, or whatever else. And that's another whole nother scam too, when it comes to, college education and degrees for, especially, we're Jason and I were talking about this the other day. I don't know if you want to go into that, Jason, but
just like when Biden, I'm sorry, I'll say this real quick and then you can go, Jason. But just like when Biden announced that he was going to pick a female minority for his VP, I'm like, how freaking offensive. How about we just pick someone based on qualification, and whatever female you pick, we all know you picked her because of what's between her legs and what color she is.
And
like,
Kamala Harris,
so offended.
Kamala Harris is the poster child for low standards. I mean, that just proves the point right there. Kamala.
No, what were you going to say?
I have no idea.
Oh, sorry.
Gary said something about education.
I said you and I were just having we were talking about the BS. Degree requirements.
The nonsense degree requirements. That everybody wants. It's and as at one time here recently in the past couple of years, I know government agencies were looking at life experience over degrees, because again, why are you going to make someone get a degree for something that's in underwater basket weaving and just say, oh, well, you have a degree, so obviously you can do this, right? If it's not degree specific, then what does it matter having a degree, So, but yeah, I think it's a complete scam a lot of times. Now, there are some things, probably like a doctor, I don't know, right? That you should have degrees and a program and stuff like that. But for everyday things, I think.
But even your degree, I mean, when you start looking at, I mean, life experience counts there too, because you can start talking about residency and all these things that are taken into account.
Right.
Yep. So it's not just what degree they have
It's not
either.
just a degree.
Yeah.
Right. But certainly that helps the program, right?
Sure.
That is what gets you to that point.
I'm actually fact checking that a little bit. I'd like to know if that's true. Female bodies are
more susceptible to
more susceptible.
You can find anything on the internet, Gary.
He's having trouble spelling
concussions.
I'm kidding. Women are more likely to report. Female athletes may be more susceptible to concussions than their male counterparts, potentially due to factors like biomechanical differences, hormonal variations, and brain structure differences. Oh God, Jeff's going to hone in on the brain structure difference. I just know it. I'm just waiting for the comment.
Yep. Look, Google AI even said it, so it must be true. Oh, there you go. That is interesting to know about, for sure.
I'd have to see more on that instead of Google
You want
AI.
to see the research?
Yeah, I'd have to see more.
Is it peer reviewed?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too. Like,
I don't see how it
actually,
happens. Their boobs
I
have to
actually
get hit
wouldn't.
first.
I wouldn't. If that research has been done by several universities or whatever else,
Well, there's NIH saying it too.
it's chances are a lot of this stuff is going to be diminished or hidden, or women are at higher risks for concussions due to ball or equipment contact in soccer and lacrosse. So there's the NIH.
No, there's a better one of the NIH. You clicked on the wrong one. Sport
It's
related.
literally the NIH.
I know. So is that one.
Sport related concussions in female athletes. Basically, your bodies are weaker. We already knew that. All right.
I
That's what it comes down to.
I don't see how that. Like,
Because they
I have
also
to
have
see
worse
because
outcomes.
your head, your skull is all made up the same thing that protects
No, it's
your
not.
brain.
No, it's not, Jay. A woman's bone density is far less that of men.
Sure,
And
sure,
that's
sure.
the thing.
I get that.
So if we have an equal force hitting our heads, it's going to impact a female or a child, for instance, the same.
Well, even
Well-
if your jaw is structured different, the forehead is structured different, the brow bone is more
Yeah, but a
prominent. more
concussion
prominent
is your
in men.
brain going back and forth inside of your skull and getting hit, right?
But what
So,
I'm
like,
saying, Jay, is if my brain, and I have the mass in my head with the bone mass, the
Let's
bone
hit you over the head
density,
and find out.
all the other things, if I hit the ground at, I don't know, 45 psi or 50 psi or whatever it is, right? And Summer hits the ground with the same amount of force, she is going to experience more damage because there's less mass there to protect her, right?
See, I don't think so. I think
Well, you'd be wrong.
Perceived pain might differ,
What?
but I don't think her concussion would be less or more because she's a woman.
It says females have worse outcomes from the concussions too.
See, it's perceived pain. Right?
No, it's not. What you're just adding words that don't mean anything. Well, look there we go. Studies related to chronic brain injury. I mean,
Female athletes appear to sustain more severe concussions than male athletes, due in part to a lower biomechanical threshold
that means the
tolerance.
physical structures of their body, Jason.
Tolerance for head impacts. Concussions may also alter the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis,
Yeah, it's because of their ovaries.
resulting in worse symptoms.
Ovaries
in-
cause concussions.
Whatever.
Yeah, so ovaries cause concussions. So-
It's also you guys don't.
But
You guys
okay,
aren't going to
so-
run to
so
the
you're-
doctor
They're
every
also
2
saying this
seconds either.
report might be skewed right here because although females are more likely to report concussions than males, so underreporting still exists.
Jason, listen to me. Under the same exact forces, a female's body is more susceptible to injury than a man's. Period. So, like, if we jump off a building with the bone density that we have, or a height, or whatever else, all right, and we hit the ground, or something hits us with the exact same force that hurts a woman, whether it be the ribs, the chest, the whatever else, we have a lot more protective muscle. We have more muscle. Do we agree with that?
Yes,
Men have more muscle.
more muscle mass.
We have stronger bones. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Well, that's an end of discussion. Like we
generally
but-
have more fat though to protect.
Yeah, all that does
baby
is
making organs.
all it does is keep you warmer.
No, it doesn't.
Like
It makes it so we can sustain and create
I
life
still-
even during famine.
I don't know. I can't jump on board with it yet.
You literally saw a
Do you work for the
scientific study.
NIH? No, I'm just kidding.
There's a scientific study here. Conclusion: the
This is
systemic
one.
review.
Well,
Oh
since
my
when
God.
does Gary trust government websites?
Well, here's my thing. I think it's true. I think if they're admitting it, again, they've probably skewed the results. It was like so blatant that they're going to downplay.
Click on the Penn Medicine one. Axons in female mammal brains may be more prone.
to severe cognitive deficits after concussion than males. Even your brains are weaker.
Oh my God.
We have longer term effects too.
And look, I mean, joking aside, like, I don't want my wife to be as strong as me. There's something special about being feminine, right? And I think that's kind of
right.
my point with this.
And I, as a woman, and there's this has changed over modern times too, or females are lying to themselves. I love being protected. I like for a man to stand out on the sidewalk, make sure I get in the car safely, open the door for me, freaking, whatever it takes to make me
Throw you
feel,
in traffic.
throw me in traffic, walk on the side of the sidewalk closest to the street. Like I notice all those little things, and I love that feeling of being watched out for and protected and put first. I love it.
Yeah, and I think
And
most
I
women.
know that's not a popular opinion in the,
And that's the
in the
thing.
feminist world, but it's a popular opinion with Summer.
I think the 99% of women that have that opinion regarding, that's wrong, that, they
Or that
shouldn't
they're-
feel. I think that it has been indoctrinated.
Yes,
that is
the
not
whole,
natural.
The whole indoctrination behind that is, oh, they're doing those things because they think you're weaker and not as capable as them, and that's their man flex or whatever
Sure.
to show you that. And I'm like, whatever. If man wants to do stuff for me, let him.
Well, and again, it goes back to denial of nature to begin with. Like women are not as strong as men in a lot of different areas. There's so many areas that women are much like
Go carry my groceries.
we are two men and women are two pieces of the puzzle that are missing a lot of things, where we fill those voids to where we can create a person or a team that is more effective in raising a family, dealing with life, and all of those things. Like we fill those
Creating a
different
safe home-
gaps,
a
both
safe home.
physically and emotionally.
JJ brings up a good point here. He says, and smaller neck muscles, right? And you know
Which
what?
Gary just brought up. We have more muscle
I can
mass.
kind of get behind that because
I literally
you have
said that, Jason.
yeah, but I'm just saying the
Muscles.
smaller neck muscles, right? I can get behind that because then you have a more significant like
Depends
coop
on what
contra
woman
coop
you're
effect.
talking
Well,
about. I've seen some women with some thick necks.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, sure.
They have thicker muscles in general. Or women have thinner muscles in general, or less muscle in general. They have thinner connective tissues. They have thinner bones. They have all of these things.
I think our connective tissues are also made to stretch a lot faster and easier so that we can bear children and things like that.
Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, those hips have got to go out to get that, to have that baby in there. Trust me.
Those hips are going out.
They do. All those tissues dramatically loosen and stretch so that the pelvis can accommodate a baby.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's science, Jason. Just stop.
Jason. I'm with Gary on this one. Sorry.
Jason's like, nah, they just complain more.
Basically, what you said.
And that's the thing. Like this male feminist thing, it has such an underlying bigotry that is behind it too. That's the thing too. Is you see these male feminists, they're just scam artists trying to get in skirts. That's really what they usually are. Like, I'm for the women. Well, no, you're just a beta male that hopes that you can say some shit so that you can get into a skirt. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
I like a manly man, not an asshole, but a manly man.
Well, you got one out of two of those.
You decide.
No, yeah.
What's that?
It's
Kids go out 'cause those babies are I knew that's what you were thinking a minute ago.
100%. I do like my woman flexible.
That's why you bought that leg stretching machine.
That's right. I haven't seen you use it once. If you guys haven't seen those though, I think it is worth showing because this is a great interview with.
Oh,
hold on, here we go. It's starting right where we're. We'll just start from the beginning. Here we go. Oh God. Excuse me.
you.
Oh, hold on. Sorry, guys.
Women, that they're still being dominated and excluded, to quote your words back to you.
It does seem that way, but multivariate analysis of the pay gap indicate that it doesn't exist.
But that's
So
just
you
not
do a
true,
uni-
is it?
That's
I mean, that
absolutely
9% pay gap, that's a gap between median hourly earnings
Yeah.
between men and women.
But there's
That
multiple,
exists.
yeah, but there's multiple reasons for that. One of them is gender, but it's not the only reason. Like if you're a social scientist worth your salt, you never do a univariate analysis. Like you say, well, women in aggregate are paid less than men. Okay, well, then we break it down by age, we break it down by occupation. We break it down by interest. We break it down by personality.
But you're saying basically it doesn't matter if women aren't getting to the top because that's what's skewing that gender pay gap, isn't it? You're saying, well, that's just a fact of
Not
life.
saying
Women
it
aren't
doesn't
necessarily
matter.
going to get to the top.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't matter either.
You're saying
I'm
it's a
saying
fact
there are
of life.
multiple reasons for it.
Yeah, but
and that
those
aren't being
reasons,
taken into
why
account.
should women put up with those reasons? Why should
should
women be
put up with it?
content
I'm not
not
saying
to
that
get
they
to the
should
top?
put up with it. I'm saying that the claim that the wage gap between men and women is only due to sex is wrong. And it is wrong. There's no doubt about that. The multivariate analysis have been done. So
Well,
I can give you an example.
You keep on talking about multivariate analysis.
Let me
No,
give
no,
you
no,
an
no, but
example.
I'm saying that 9% pay gap
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah.
That's a gap between men and women. I'm not saying why it exists, but it exists. Now,
Yeah, but
if
you
you're a
have to say
woman,
why
that
it
seems
exists.
pretty unfair.
You have to say why it exists.
But do you agree that it's unfair? If you're a woman
Not necessarily.
and on average you're getting paid 9% less than a man, that's not fair, is it?
It depends on why it's happening. I can give you an example. Okay. There's a personality trait known as agreeableness. Agreeable people are compassionate and polite. And agreeable people get paid less than less agreeable people for the same job. Women are more agreeable than men.
Again, a vast generalization. Some
It's not
women
a
are not more
generalization.
agreeable than
Yes,
men.
that's true, but that's right. And some women get paid more than men.
So you were saying that by and large, women are too agreeable to get the pay rises they deserve.
No, I'm saying that that's one component of a multivariate equation that predicts salary. It accounts for maybe 5% of the variance, something like that.
So why not get them to ask for a pay rise?
I've
Wouldn't
done
that
that.
be a fairer
I've done
way of
that
proceeding?
many, many times in my career.
And they
I've
just don't.
counseled. Oh, they do it all the time. You can. So one of the things that you do as a clinical psychologist is assertiveness training. So you might say, often you treat people for anxiety, you treat them for depression, and maybe the next most common category after that would be assertiveness training. And so I've had many, many women, extraordinarily competent women in my clinical and consulting practice, and we put together strategies for their career development that involve continual pushing, competing for higher wages, and often tripled their wages within a 5-year period, teaching
you
them how to
celebrate that?
negotiate. Of course.
So
Of
do
course.
you agree that you would be happy if that pay gap was eliminated completely?
It
Because
would
that's all
depend-
the radical feminists are saying.
It would depend on how it was eradicated and how the disappearance of it was measured.
And you're
These
saying
things
if
you
it's at the
can't- you
cost
can't-
of men, that's a problem.
Oh, there's all sorts of things that it could be at the cost of. It could even be at the cost of women's own interests. So
Because they might not be happy if they get equal pay.
no, because it might interfere with other things that are causing the pay gap that women are choosing to do.
Like having children.
Well, or choosing careers that actually happen to be paid less, which women do a lot of.
But why shouldn't women have the right to choose not to have children or the right to choose those demanding
They
careers?
do. They can. Yeah, that's fine. Actually not listening.
I'm
They're just
listening very
projecting
carefully,
what
and
they
I'm
think.
hearing you basically saying women need to just accept they're never going to make it on equal terms, equal outcomes is how you defined it.
No, I
If
didn't
I
say
was
that.
a
I
young
said that
woman
equal-
watching that, I would go, well, I might as well just go and play with my Cindy dolls
I
and give
didn't
up
say
trying
that.
at school because I'm not going to get the top job I want. Because
said
there's
that
someone sitting there saying it's not possible
I
and it's
said
not
that
desirable, it's
equal
going to make
outcomes
you
aren't
miserable.
desirable. That's what I said. It's a
Yeah,
bad
it's not
social
desirable.
goal. I didn't say that women shouldn't be striving for the top or anything like that, because I don't believe that for a second.
Striving for the top, but you're going to
Yeah.
put all those hurdles in their way, as has been in their way for centuries, and that's
No,
fine. You're saying
no,
that's
no.
fine.
No, I really
The
think that's-
patriarchal
I
system
really
is
think
just
that's
fine.
silly. I do. I think that's silly. I really do. I mean, look at your situation. You're hardly unsuccessful.
Yeah, and I have
How do
battled
you
quite
manage it?
hard to get where I've got
Exactly.
to.
Good
So
for
that's
you.
okay. Battling is good. This is all
It's
about the fight.
inevitable.
But you talk about men
why
fighting. I mean, let
wouldn't
me
you
just
have-
put another thing to you from the book.
Why
You're
wouldn't
saying
you have to
real.
battle for a high quality position?
Well, I notice in your book you talk about real conversations between men containing, quote, an underlying threat of physicality.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
What about real conversations between women? Is that something, or are we sort of too amenable and reasonable?
No, it's just that the domain of physical conflict is sort of off limits for you.
Well,
And
you
it's
just said
rather
that I
unfortunate.
fought to get where I've got.
Yeah, but
What does that make me?
Well,
a
I
sort of
don't
proxy
imagine-
man or
I
something?
don't imagine that yeah, to some degree, I suspect you're not very agreeable.
So that's the thing. Successful women, I'm not very agreeable.
Right.
But
I've noticed that
successful-
actually in this conversation.
At least
And
we
I'm
can have a
sure
joke
it
about it.
served your career well.
Successful women, though,
Mhm.
basically have to wear the trousers in your view. They have to sort of become men to succeed, is what you're saying.
Well, if they're going
I've had to fight to succeed,
if they're
therefore
going to
I'm an
compete
honorary
against
man.
men, certainly masculine traits are going to be helpful. I mean, one of the things I do in my counseling practice, for example, when I'm consulting with women who are trying to advance their careers, is to teach them how to negotiate. Firms in Canada for about 15 years, and they were as competent and put together as anybody you would ever meet. And we were trying to figure out how to further their careers. And there was a huge debate in Canadian society at that point that was basically ran along the same lines as your argument, is that if the law firms didn't use these masculine criteria,
There wouldn't have
they
been
don't predict
a banking
success.
crisis.
They
if
don't
that had
predict
happened.
success in the workplace. The things that predict success in the workplace are intelligence and conscientiousness. Agreeableness negatively predicts success in the workplace. And
So
so
you're
does
saying
high
that-
negative emotion.
You're saying that women aren't intelligent enough to run these top companies?
No, I didn't say that at all.
You said that female traits don't predict success.
But I didn't say that
Intelligence and
intelligence wasn't. I didn't say that
do.
intelligence and conscientiousness
Well, you were saying that
weren't
intelligence
female
and
traits.
conscientiousness by implication are not female traits.
No, no.
I
I'm
mean,
not
that's very
saying that.
dangerous
I'm
territory.
not saying that at all.
Desirable at the top.
It's hard to say. I'm just laying out the empirical evidence. Like we know the traits that predict success.
But we also know, because companies by and large have not been dominated by women over the centuries, we have nothing to compare it to. It's an experiment.
True, and it could be the case that if companies modified their behavior and became more feminine, that they would be successful. But
You
there's
seem
no
doubtful about
evidence
that.
for it. I'm not neither doubtful nor non-doubtful. There's no
So
evidence
why
for
not
it.
give it a go, as the radical
Because the evidence
feminists would
suggests,
say?
well, it's fine. If someone wants to start a company and make it more feminine and compassionate, let's say, and caring in its overall orientation towards its workers and towards the marketplace, then that's a perfectly reasonable
To be offended.
because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm
you get
very
my
glad that I have
no, but you get
exercised
my
my freedom of
point.
speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what.
Yeah. So, again, many times, and I was trying to find the spot, he kind of goes through and kind of enumerates a lot of the different, number one, the job roles that women often take, like school teachers and things like that. They spend less time, they spend time out of the workforce because they are having babies. A lot of this gender gap is not because, like, hey, you're a female, I'm paying you less for the same job. As a matter of fact, women by and large, again, they're attending school, they have higher degrees than men, they live longer than men, they have jobs that are not nearly as hard as men. We don't see women construction workers, we don't see the physical labor side of that. We see less engineers that are women. Some like engineering and a lot of these different jobs are dominated, 90% plus by men.
I mean, I'll say I'm way more assertive than I used to be.
Yeah,
I mean, I have to be with you.
I've
But,
taught you well.
but I
I've
mean,
made her such a better
on,
person.
on the flip side of that, there has been, and I don't know what it's like now, but there has been, and even in current times, as I entered the career phase of my early 20s, just that there was a very clear divide of men versus women. I
Sure.
got passed over for a promotion and told by my boss that it was because I was a woman, because the meeting rooms did not respond the same way to a woman as a
Sure.
man. And I also saw by that same office and mostly that boss that he was very resentful and jealous of a female in his industry
Mhm.
that was like
That was successful.
super successful, and she was one of the only ones. And you could just hear the little chatter behind the scenes about her
Well, I mean, look,
because she was a successful woman.
there is no doubt that misogyny exists, right? And a lot of it's jealousy and other things. But here's the flip side of that. There's lots of, all things being equal, there's lots of people in career fields and in businesses and in certain industries and in corporations that are doing all the right things, that are a better performer,
Sure.
and then they get passed by somebody that, for whatever reason. Some of that has to do with, sometimes they're just more likable. They go out drinking with them. They do all these things, whatever it is. Like, there's lots of reasons why those happen. And there's definitely going to be certain dynamics within the office that look, the boss is a misogynist or the boss is a
Or
racist.
and I think part of it, he saw it as like, hey, like to go out and get the business. And so there's a social aspect to that,
Sure.
right? And it's the good old boys going out and drinking and socializing, and a woman in the midst. They can't do the same activities or have the same conversations or with a woman there. And like Jason said, at least he was honest. And guess what? I was able to make decisions based off of that honesty, and I left.
Yeah. Well, and again, it doesn't it may feel wrong to you, but do you think he was right in some of those aspects?
So I didn't resent him over it, and I didn't get angry at him over it. I kind of even actually saw that he's right, that's how it is. Does that make it right that that's the way it is? No. But I mean, at the same time, I also lost a little bit of respect seeing him so resentful and jealous of a woman that was successful in
Sure.
the same job.
Sure.
So I lost respect for him. Like, she's not she's not taking business away from you. Like, you're successful, she's successful, and there's room for you both. You just didn't like it because she was a woman running around the office with her Gucci purses. But guess what? That woman was successful, very successful, but her whole life was dedicated to that success.
Yeah.
She was single. She wasn't married.
Yeah.
She didn't have kids. She had nothing else other than being successful in the industry she was in.
And look, I think there's just going to be some industries too that are, I mean, just not as easy for women. Like,
Sure.
Whether we're talking about, football or whatever it is. And again, just some of the industries where you're just not going to see. And the same, I mean, the opposite is true for men too. Like, the opposite is true from a race standpoint too. Like, generally speaking, white guys don't do as well in the rap industry or
God.
professional basketball.
Could you imagine you're in the rap industry?
Oh, I'm getting G'd out.
You'd kill it.
Look, and when it does happen, we have like Eminem and we have a couple other white rappers out there. But the fact is like, there's some industries that are geared toward us, and the same thing goes with women. Like, there's certain
Or
industries,
just culturally,
whether
you're
it be
brought
a
up in
makeup
it.
industry,
Sure.
whether it be fashion, whatever it is, there are
Unless
definitely
you're
going
gay.
to be industries that are kind of more geared toward a feminine touch.
I mean,
or
look,
whatever
like
it
I
is.
said, I would go visit that same boss again and say, like, hey, how you doing? Cool, we're cool. There's no like resentful, hard feelings there. I was just sharing an experience.
No.
But I would love to go back and be like, look at me now.
There you go. Like, look at me now. Have you seen my husband?
Yeah. Have you seen my husband? And I own my own business. You don't own your own business.
Yeah, and I think this is something that Jordan Peterson was talking about when it comes to agreeableness. I think any high level person in business, especially, but there's lots of industries. I mean, most of them are not agreeable. When you talk about, I was watching some interviews. They were talking about Michael Jordan's interaction with other teammates, and same thing with Kobe Bryant. Like, they were both dicks to a lot of their teammates. Like, they lived on an island because they were so dedicated to what they do. They didn't care about what anybody else thought. They weren't there to please anybody
Read
else.
David Goggins' book. He
There
was
you go.
not his team did not like him because
no.
he was doing his own thing
Yep.
and yeah. But I mean,
Now, what I will say, when it comes down to it, I do think there's some truth in. I just heard somebody talking about this the other day. Like, if you're a good-looking, attractive woman, you definitely have
an advantage.
An advantage.
Absolutely.
There is no doubt
Yep.
about it. And I've seen this in the workplace many, many times.
Mhm.
You have this female that comes in, doesn't have the job experience of that job, doesn't have and
But
suddenly
she has the confidence
she has
because
confidence.
of the looks.
She looks good, and
She's more
she's grown up
assertive.
that way.
She's more assertive.
She's very assertive.
Yep.
Whatever it is, like, there are definitely advantages that women have, whether they're good looking or not. I mean, the fact is like, we're all given. We all have a hand of cards, right? And it's how we play those cards.
Mhm.
And we can either play those cards to the best of our ability, or we can sit around and bitch about the cards that we don't have. That's the difference between success and failure.
Well, that's the current culture in society now.
It
To
is.
sit around and bitch about the cards that you don't have and the hand that you weren't dealt, that someone else was dealt, and how unfair it is, instead of like looking at what you have and working with what you got and advancing yourself with that. So
No, Con, I'm not a boobs guy. Just let you know right now. The
Okay,
boobs do
obviously.
nothing for me. I'll be honest with you.
he likes a
Like,
butt.
I do like a good old booty and some nice legs. But yeah, so I think that's a fact, and that's the thing too. Like, one of the things that really frustrates me in and I want to say this with the way that I intend to, or what I want to project here.
Oh,
Like
Lord.
I'm just on like when it comes to what African Americans should be being told today is like, hey, you know what? You have more advantages than any people behind you have ever had. By the way, even during times where there's slavery still existed, there were still millionaire African Americans. There was highly successful African Americans. They had a lot more adversity than you would ever face. But now today it's really easy. Stay in school, do the right things, go to college. You can get college loans that are not available to poor white kids. There's a lot of advantages of being a minority in this, but the problem is to keep that whole shtick going. Is you have these race hustlers trying to tell all these
keep you a
kids
victim.
that you are a victim, that
Mhm.
everybody around you judges you by your skin color, when 99.9% of all people that don't, and whatever judgment they have, like, you have an opportunity to completely change their
What they are
stereotype.
judging is that you constantly feed into that victim
Yeah.
role.
Like, there's
does
nothing.
it ever get tired of,
Being in a corporate workplace, there was some people that you just wanted to stay away from, and that was the female that thought every guy was hitting on her,
oh my God,
or
had one of those,
or there was the female that constantly complained, and the same thing goes with the guys. Like you had minorities that constantly felt like whatever was happening to them was happening because of their skin color or ethnicity or whatever else. And it's like, no, dude, you just suck. All right. And it's not because of the content it's not because of the color of your skin. It's because of the content of your character. You have terrible work ethic. Has nothing to do with you being a certain color. Same thing with, you'd see this with women where they were held to the same expectations and they got offended by that and let that be a constant negative to them. And this is the same thing that has been bred for the last 10, 15 years in the military. Was like, oh, you're not letting me do this because I'm African American, or I'm female, or whatever else it is. Like, these excuses don't exist in a modern society. As a matter of fact, we have so few problems that we can create these. We are so blessed as a nation, as anybody in the United States. You have so much opportunity that it still gives you the opportunity. You don't have to deal with real problems. So it gives you plenty of free time to come up with bullshit problems that actually don't exist and don't affect your life at all, but allows you the time to focus on them because you don't have real problems to focus on.
Or look at all the people that came before you that came from horrible circumstances before all the affirmative action, and look at all the great things they were able to accomplish.
100%.
Like, if they did it, so can you.
Yeah.
Unless you're just not as smart.
Summer does this all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. So, I think there's nothing more American than making sure that we have the same standards for the same opportunities.
For the job you're doing.
And again, there's lots of jobs out there for the guys that want to be war fighters and want to be, look, if you want to be special, be special. Like, you have to be exceptional physical specimen. You have to be exceptional with physical capabilities. You have to be able to do some things that the vast majority of the population won't. And most people, especially most men, are capable of that, but it takes a certain amount of dedication and time to build into that mindset. Like, when I was going to special operations, I was already I was at scout platoon. I was a sniper team leader. Like, we already had high physical standards, and we were doing PT crazy 5 days a week. Well, guess what? When I was getting ready to go to selection, I was out there rucking 12, 15 miles a day on the weekend, going for 10-mile runs at 6-minute miles. Like, that's what I was doing because I was driven to do something. And then when I got to selection, I thought selection was actually, it was half as hard as I thought it was. But again, you gotta want it, and everybody out there has opportunities. And if you don't have the opportunities you want in this specific situation or occupation or career field, guess what? It's probably not meant for you, and you weren't built for that. There's something else that you need to go out and find. And there's a fine line between figuring that out and just giving up too, right? You have to have some intuition, like, hey, you know what? This really isn't for me. It's like knife making. I did that for a long time. Like, we've started probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 different businesses, and figuring out, hey, at the end of the day, this isn't what's for us. This isn't going to work. And I love,
or if it's something you enjoy, but it doesn't produce a sustainable income.
Yeah. I love custom knife making. And it's something I may get into again at some point, start making some high-end production knives. That's something I would like to do. But what I realized real quick is like, you're not going to make any money, making one knife at a time. It's just, if you love the art so much, great. Just know that you're going to be poor. But I didn't want to be poor, and I didn't want to work, 120 hours a week, making about $5 an hour. Yeah. This ain't cheap.
No.
Neither is my lifestyle. All the crap I want. So anyways, I think this is a really good move by Pete Hegseth. It's something that should have been done a long time ago. It should just be common sense and should have been the status quo to begin with. But we are having a revolution back to common sense in this administration. And I love to see.
Hopefully at least for 3.5 more years. God only knows what happens after that.
I do. I can also bite my own ear. That's how fast I am. I'm trying to see if you have some extra time. I don't know.
When you're talking about starting up a making business again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are no doubt that there are women that can perform well in certain situations. Again, it's just a matter of putting through the pipeline of something like special operations. I don't think that any woman that's there right now, whether Ranger Tab qualified or Ranger Battalion, or apparently there's a couple of Green Beret women now, I do not think those women would be there if the standards
and Georgie,
had been
there's
the same.
lots of heroic, brave actions that a woman can do that don't require the physical capabilities that we're talking about. Was her Silver Star awarded because she went in and drug out 10 250-pound men out of a, probably not. Yeah. But that doesn't mean her actions weren't heroic and brave, and that she obviously deserved the Silver Star. Yeah,
it is what it is. Yeah, it is extremely hard to make money making knives, selling, doing custom knife work or whatever else.
JJ got his picture of his rifle.
He does. Yeah, so the company I had of the name brand was Melton Knife and Design, MKD.
We still got some t-shirts and hats.
And
around.
You know what? I don't have a single knife of my own. I sold them all. Every time I went to make one for myself, and the only people I gave them to were family members.
Yeah.
But every time I made one for myself, I ended up getting talked into selling it, and then it was like, oh, I can always make another one. But I was selling my custom knives back in 2008, 9, 10, 11 or so for $800-900 a piece, and I just couldn't make them fast enough. But it is what it is. Anyways, that's not going to happen anytime soon. I definitely don't have time to make knives.
I knew that was coming.
If I had time to make knives, I would have my own knife, and then my two boys would have a knife. And I don't even think little Gary has a knife. But
I think
I know my brother has one.
Yeah. I don't think anybody
I don't know if he still has it. He may have sold it. Who knows? But the point is where common sense is back. And I like to, hopefully it stays there.
It's past my bedtime.
It's past my bedtime too. All right, folks. Well, we're going to call tonight. We'll definitely have, I'll let you know. I was talking to Chris for a Counter Media podcast. I don't know if we decided on Thursday or Friday. I'll let you guys know as soon as I know, and we will get that up, and we will definitely there's lots more to cover. I was trying to hold back as far as covering some of the other things in the current news cycle, so that we would have plenty of topics to cover either tomorrow or Friday. So we will have that up. But anyways, folks, we appreciate your time. We got a lot more things coming in the near future. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter, make sure you guys do that. Definitely go sign up for some courses, whether it's long range, tactical carbine, med courses, handgun courses. We do it all. We probably will have some more advanced courses toward the end of the year, both CQB, tactical 2-gun, all of those things. And yeah,
folks better sign up.
Folks, for those of you that are wanting a buy it now rifle, we do have a bunch that just came in. We'll be putting those up.
A bunch.
Well, some of them are accounted for. Yeah, we have a few that have come in. So if you want to check out the website,
they haven't gone up yet. I haven't even unboxed them all.
I know. Be looking at the website. Or send us an email. We've already had a couple of people that were wanting rifles. We knew. We talked to them like, hey, this is what we got in. They got first pick. So if that's something you're looking for, let us know, and we'll try to square you away.
I'm also filling orders.
We also have KGM suppressors on the website.
Yes.
We've
We've already sold some.
Yep.
So if you want one,
I'm still in the middle of review for that. I got some more filming to do. I filmed 2 sections of it already. Still got some more filming to do on that.
JJ,
but-
I haven't even unwrapped yours, but I mean, yours is a tungsten chassis. The only reason Jason got a picture of his is because he ordered a wild, crazy pattern we hadn't had before. So
folks, we will
your
not be
rifle-
sending pictures.
your rifle
of,
looks exactly like your
yeah, well,
photo there.
guys, we don't have time. Like we're not going to be sending pictures. We have all these people now because we did for Jason. He had a new rifle. It was,
Jason,
he got special things.
He-
Like we do
well,
not have time to take pictures. and send people
literally
pictures
because
of
it was
rifles.
that red and black
Yeah.
tiger stripe that we had never had before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And that's the thing. Like we constantly get inundated with these little things that doesn't seem like a lot to one person, but when you add them all up on top of what we had to do with everything else, yeah, we have pictures of all that stuff on the website.
yeah. Jason said hard to film at the motocross track.
It is.
That's how I found out where you were, because I had texted Jason today about something, and he's like, "Oh, I guess Gary's out."
I was doing video editing at the motocross track.
I guess Gary's out having fun today.
That's what I was
I was
doing.
like, I don't even know where my husband is, but where is he? He's like, oh, he's at the motocross track. I was like, oh.
Yep. All right, folks. You guys have a wonderful night. We will talk to you soon. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll see you.